Hello, Abnormal Investigations. I have another encounter for y'all that was sent in, but also I want to talk to you about another encounter that was sent in that I'll be putting out also. A lady sent me some actual photographs in the mail, a handwritten encounter that involves a UFO, her family, and that'll be coming out soon. I hope you all enjoy this one coming up. I think it's going to be a good one, and we're going to go ahead and get into this one. I think you're going to enjoy it. For the sake of my privacy, please call me Fred. I'm a lifelong resident of Ohio and hail from Ross County. I have two encounters which I would like to share with you and your audience. My first sighting of a Bigfoot came when I was 11 years old in 1999. My family and I were in the family car and returning home from Illinois after visiting my uncle, aunt, and cousins for Thanksgiving. Dad was driving and Mom was humming and singing, which is just something she's always done for as long as I can remember. My sister was seated beside me and behind Mom, I think trying to converse with her while Dad was no doubt focused on the road ahead during our ride. Now I don't know if we're still in Illinois or if we'd crossed the state line into Indiana yet, but I think we were in the Hoosier State at that point of the car ride. I remember staring out of my window and looking into the trees when I saw something furry, tall, and black walking through those trees and the thickets. I probably only saw it for 6 to 8 seconds, but I felt like an eternity watching this thing ambling along like it didn't have a care in the whole wide world. Before I knew it, I blurted out, I saw Bigfoot, just like Harry and the Hendersons. I saw one right now in the woods. My mom gave me a quizzical look, and my sister did somewhat the same and called me a dork. Dad said something like, "That's malarkey, Fred. Bigfoot isn't real." I protested and doubled down, saying that I did see Bigfoot, and then I described what I saw to them. My dad said again I was spewing nonsense, that I didn't see a Bigfoot, and if I saw something, it was probably a local guy wearing a big coat out there for some unknown reason. Anyhow, Dad shut me down on this while Mom gave me the sympathetic look, although I knew she wasn't going to back me. I just let it go since I knew none of them believed me. That was my very first sighting of a Bigfoot, but not my last. Fast forward to April of 2021. My parents own a few acreage of land not far from the family house, and it's in the middle of the land that they have a small cabin surrounded by trees on the property. My family members have used the cabin over the years for various things, including gathering places for parties and celebrations, a place to hunt out of for deer season, and one of my female cousins even lived in it once for a few months when she'd been down on her luck and didn't have anywhere else to go. When I'm not working and have time off, I like to go to the cabin to relax, spend some quality time with nature as well as good book. That's exactly what I've been doing for several years now, and I find it is beneficial for my mental health to have that alone time, away from other human beings, since people typically stress me out. On that particular day, my first one back to the cabin on April of that year, I was in the process of unloading my Jeep when I saw something that was standing about 15 feet from me, closely observing what I was doing. It was reddish, kind of copperish color with fur that was maybe 4 inches long. At first, my brain was like, hey, that's an orangutan. But then I immediately dismissed that thought from my brain and said to myself, no, that's a juvenile Bigfoot. It then, tentatively and cautiously, approached me until we were 10 feet apart, and then it stopped. It was between 4'7" and 4'9" tall, clearly a male, and it smelled like a dog that had never had a bath in its life. When it was closer, though, I could clearly see this wasn't a juvenile Bigfoot. He had a very human-looking face, not like that of a gorilla or a primate. His nose was a lot like mine, a little broader, and his lips weren't like a gorilla's or a chimp's, but like a person's. The head was not conical, and it did appear to have a neck, although it was a very short neck, The arms were long and his hands hung down past the knees. While in this stature less than 5 feet tall, it was very muscular everywhere, and very wide nonetheless. The ears, well, it only had one ear. It looked like the other might have been torn off. The ear that remained, though, was mostly flat against the side of the head and barely protruding. One of the most notable things I noticed was this fellow also had a large scar that started about 1/4 of an inch under his right eye and which ran vertical down the side over his lips. The scar continued downward and then looked right, giving it a bit of a letter L shape. It ran through the light fur on the face, and no fur grew where the noticeable scar was. Something or someone had clearly harmed this fellow in his lifetime. He also had a little gray around his temples and lines near the eyes. My final thought regarding him was that he was a Bigfoot that possibly had some type of dwarfism. Well, that, or maybe there are a tribe of Bigfoots that are all around that size. Who knows? Those listening are probably wondering if I was scared. No, I wasn't. I didn't feel threatened or intimidated by him. I think he was just curious and wanted to investigate. He just stood there and tilted his head sideways at me. This probably took place in the span of a literal minute before he gave me a big, dopey, goofy smile. It wasn't menacing. It was childlike. He grinned at me like we were friends and he had known me his entire life. He turned around and walked back toward the forest before turning around to smile at me once more. He then went into the woods and quickly gone from my sight. I then took my items that I'd retrieved from the Jeep and went inside the cabin. The rest of the day I read my book and reflected on my encounter with the Bigfoot. The next morning I made myself breakfast at the table, which consisted of scrambled eggs, bacon, toast, grapefruit, and a banana. After placing the food on the table and taking a seat, I noticed he had returned. He was looking in the window, smiling that dopey smile at me again. He looked at my breakfast and licked his lips like he was hungry. He then looked back at me. I thought if he was hungry, then I would feed him. I took my plate and breakfast, carefully opened the front door as not to drop anything, and then walked outside. I returned his smile while placing the food I had quickly piled onto the plate onto the porch before taking 2 steps back. He looked at me, then down at the food, and then back up at me. It was like he was silently saying, "This is for me." I maintained my smile and he stepped up, bent over and picked up the plate before turning around and going back into the forest. Like the day prior, before he reached to the wooded area and entered, he gave me one look back at me and another smile, as if in saying thanks. I stared out into the woods another 10 minutes watching the way he had gone, but I didn't see him again. I went inside and prepared another breakfast, since I was now rather hungry. Later that evening, I went out to the Jeep and placed several bananas, grapefruit, oranges on the hood, along with a block of cheddar cheese and a half a block of Swiss cheese and some chocolate bars that I had in the cabin before returning back inside. I peeked out the window a couple of times and the items were still there. When I peeked out almost an hour later, well, everything was gone. The following day, he didn't show back up when I was having my breakfast. I ate, and I went outside when I noticed there were some items on the hood of my Jeep where I had left the food for him. I gathered in exchange for the food he wanted to give me some items in return. There were 3 highly polished blue rocks, a large flint arrowhead, a Susan B. Anthony dollar coin, a Canadian $20 bill that was torn with bite marks on it, a pine cone, and the head and arm of a Barbie doll. I never saw him again, but my wishes are that wherever he is, I hope he's well. Additionally, the night before I went back to my house, to my home, I saw 2 triangle-shaped UFOs silently floating near the cabin and moving up and around each other as though they were dancing. When I took a couple of steps down off of the porch for a better view, they stopped in midair as though they had noticed me. Both were glowing along the edges, but being nighttime, I couldn't see anything else color-wise, just that they were as dark as pitch away from those edges. Soon they both shot straight up into the sky at an unbelievable speed and were gone. I don't know if me seeing them had anything to do with the Bigfoot, but I felt like more than just a coincidence. Anyhow, as a man coming from a family of non-believers, thank you for letting me get this off my chest. Fred. I would like to say thank you for sending this in. I really enjoyed this encounter, and it really made me think, because down where me and Sarah have been having these interactions, I will call them interactions, a lot of people are saying they're EVPs. I have trouble with that. To be honest, I can't say that they're EVPs. I'm going to call them unknown voices coming from an unknown creature or entity. Until I can see where they're coming from or not see where they're coming from, I don't know where they're coming from. A part of me thinks that they are Sasquatch. A part of me thinks that they are the creatures that were at my granny's, because they've done so many of these things. They mimicked voices. They could sound just like us. They mimicked sounds like my grandma's bell that she would ring, the door shutting, car doors shutting. And then another thing, that my mom, when she listened to the voice the other night, especially the one I have on Patreon where it's called Sarah's Name, you can hear it so plainly. Mom looked at me and said, "We heard that down at Granny's, But the one thing that really, really got her attention was the scream that I got, down on the creek the other night, where it actually screamed at me, where you could hear it. It done it again with Sarah also, but when it done it to me when I was alone, it was a lot closer, a lot louder. And Mom actually got her attention really big, and she said, "That's what we heard at Granny's." Well, I know that I saw eye shine. A lot of people saw eye shine right before it happened, because I say I'm going to turn my light up. If we're getting eye shine, excuse me, if we're getting eye shine and we're getting noises, to me, and this is just me, a demon's not going to have eye shine. Not that it's going to reflect light. I mean, they may glow or something like that, but they're not going to reflect as an animal. You're not going to hear them swimming across the creek unless they are in some kind of a physical body. If you're a demon, you have no need to swim. I mean, you could glide across, So, whatever these are that I'm dealing with, they are held within the rules somewhat of what we are in the physical realm. They're having to swim. Their eyes are glowing. As this gentleman just said here, they are known for eating food. They done it at my granny's. We have heard that they make fires. We know that the natives said it. They ate their children, bred with their women. So that tells me that they're held into a physical realm. Do I believe that supernatural and cryptids are related? They say that there is people that have a cryptid encounter, 25% of those will have a paranormal encounter. I believe that yes, they are related, but I don't believe they're the same thing. And what I'm saying by that is, I mean that by being related, I believe that the offspring of the Nephilim, which was the corrupted DNA, is these many different cryptids we're seeing, because we know that it wasn't just one species that the DNA was corrupted, or we believe that to be. It was a war over the seed. So we would have many different animals, reptilians, that would have corrupted DNA that would cause it to bear different kinds of cryptids. But also you go back to the disembodied Nephilim, which I believe to be demons, then they would also have that connection by means of what I would think would be the bloodline with these. They're related. And if they are related, I can see how they would interact together and how they would be attracted to one another. I'm not saying it's all the time, but I do believe that there is a percentage, and I wouldn't say, exactly 25%, but I do believe there is a percentage to where you have that lineage between them. And then you're going to have that encounter between them. When you encounter one, that you're going to encounter the other. Is it possible that this area I found is such a hot spot that you do have these demons and there is cryptids there, and that's why there's both, because they're both attracted to one another, and they have found this spot as a hot spot? I know that we found what we thought was a hut down there, and we are going to hike back into that this year. Maybe this is a spot to where maybe it's where they feel safe, because there's nothing around for miles. So is this the dry places that the Bible speaks about? Is this where the Nephilim demons have been cast? And the reason they're also there with the cryptids? Is that what they are? I don't know. I'm still trying to figure it out myself. I just know that we have to look at PowerPoints of things that happen and are connected. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're connected, but I don't believe in coincidence either. So if you keep having this happen over and over and over, it goes to make me to believe that, yeah, there is a connection. But we're not going to know until we do more boots on the ground, until we do more studying. Like I said, there's no experts, and most of this is all based on theory and opinion. But I think we can learn something from this. Guys, I hope you really enjoyed this one. I enjoyed this one myself. It really got me to thinking. Sorry I rambled so much at the end of this one. And again, guys, thank you so much for watching. And don't forget, keep your head on a swivel, and don't be something's dinner. We'll see you on the next one.